Unemployment improved a bit last month, but it's still nearly 9%. And the trouble is, job creation is so slow, it will be years before we get back the 7.5 million jobs lost in the Great Recession. American families have been falling out of the middle class in record numbers. The combination of lost jobs and millions of foreclosures means a lot of folks are homeless and hungry for the first time in their lives. One of the consequences of the recession that you don't hear much about is the record number of children descending into poverty. The government considers a family of four to be impoverished if they take in less than $22,000 a year. Based on that standard and government projections of unemployment, it is estimated the poverty rate for kids in this country will soon hit 25%. Those children would be the largest American generation to be raised in hard times since the Great Depression.
The story will continue in a moment.
In Seminole County near Orlando, Florida, so many kids have lost their homes, school buses now stop at dozens of cheap motels where families crowd into rooms living week to week. 11-year-old Destiny Corfey joined the line at this motel a year ago.
I never really noticed what people were actually going through until now, until we're actually going through it too.
David and Teresa Corfey never imagined their family homeless. Together, they were making about $40 an hour detailing expensive cars. There was a 3-bedroom home, vacations, extras for the kids. But both jobs went, and then the house. Evicted, they found that the homeless shelters wanted to split their family up, boys and girls.
That was definitely something that I wasn't going to have, was being separated at a time like this. I figured that a time like this that we needed to be together more than anything.
So David, Teresa, Destiny, George, and Chance moved into their van.
George climbed up here on the back seat, and Destiny and Chance here.
I was embarrassed that maybe one of my friends might see me. I don't want anybody to know that I was actually in there.
Where was the van parked?
It was at a Walmart.
We would actually go in Walmart and clean ourselves up before we go to school.
Yeah, in the bathroom.
Save some money.
How would you do that?
I would wash my face and take a tissue, wash my arms and stuff.
We would bring the toothpaste and the toothbrush and the brushes, so we'll go brush our hair in the mirror, and people would see us. Yeah. It would be kind of weird, but we went through it.
Tell me about the motel that you're living in now.
Well, it's a lot better than the van.
Yeah, it's really small though.
2 rooms for the 5 of them. Their possessions, family photos, you name it, went into storage, and they lost it all, seized and sold when they couldn't pay that bill.
Most of my stuff was in there, my scooter, my game system, all my games, my clothes. So I lost most of my stuff, so.
I had so many of my toys and things, my Barbie dolls, clothes, and it was just all gone.
What's the neighborhood like around the motel?
Scary.
What do you mean?
You hear on the news all the time about shootings, and it's all right there.
Nationwide, 14 million children were in poverty before the Great Recession. Now the U.S. Census tells us it's 16 million, up 2 million in 2 years. That is the fastest fall for the middle class since the government started counting 51 years ago. One of the areas suffering the most is otherwise advertised as the happiest place on earth, the counties around Disney World and Orlando. Just on Highway 192, the road to Disney World, 67 motels house about 500 homeless kids. The government counts them homeless if they have only temporary shelter. In Seminole County schools, 1,000 students have recently lost their homes.
How many of you in the last few weeks have gone to bed hungry?
At Castleberry School, students whose families are at the poverty level or slightly above qualify for the free lunch program. We talked with some of those kids with their parents' permission.
Who can tell me what it's like to feel hungry?
It's hard, you can't sleep, you just wait, you just go to sleep for 5 minutes and you wake up again and your stomach hurts and you're thinking, I can't sleep, I'm going to try and sleep, I'm going to try and sleep, but you can't because your stomach's hurting, and it's because it doesn't have any food in it.
and it's like a black hole. And sometimes when I don't eat, my stomach, you can hear like it's like growling, you can hear it.
Usually we eat macaroni or we drink water or tea.
My mom will sometimes like make food and then she won't have enough, so at night we'll just eat cereal or something. Other times my parents will fight about money because they don't have enough money to pay the food.
We have to sometimes take food from a church. It's hard because my grandmother's also out of work and we usually get some food from her.
It's kind of embarrassing because the next day you go to school asking kids if they want this or if they want that. If they have cereal and they haven't opened it yet, you go ask them if they want their cereal.
We found a lot of families are making a choice between food and electricity.
How many of you have had the lights turned off at your house? How do you study when you don't have the lights on at home?
We have emergency flashlights and I usually have to use them. I'll just light candles and sit around in a circle of candles.
Candles? Yes, ma'am?
I use candles because my mommy brings some.
I'll go out to the car and turn on the overhead and read out there and study.
Ashley Ray raised her hand to add something that we didn't expect.
I kind of feel like it's my fault that we don't have enough money. I feel like it's my fault that they have to pay for me and the clothes that they buy for me.
They're believing it's their fault that they're in this situation.
Beth Davalos runs the Seminole County programs for homeless kids.
Our numbers go up every day, between 5 and 15 new homeless students a day.
Every day?
Every day.
And she told us something else is new.
When I first started this program, 8 years ago, homelessness lasted maybe 2-3 months. But now with it lasting 3, 6 months, a year, or 2 years, this is when children are developing who they are, and their foundation is broken.
How are these kids doing in school?
They're struggling. It's much harder. They're more at risk of not doing well. They're focusing on how can I help mom and dad. We have so many students that want to quit school and go to work.
Beth Davalos is working to keep Jacob Braverman on track in school. His family lost this house suddenly in October. When he got off the bus that day, the door was locked.
That was the last thing I expected.
It wasn't your house anymore.
Yeah.
His mother, Rosa, lost her job, but the eviction was a shock. The bank told Rosa she had 30 days, but it was 5 days later that the cops moved them out. There's a lot of chaos in foreclosures all across the country because of the sheer number of them. There were 1 million last year, and another 1 million are expected this year. In Florida, the counties with the highest foreclosure rates see some of the biggest increases in child poverty. Rosa was suddenly on the street, and like the Corfis, she faced splitting up her family.
This is what is important, is family is wherever you are, together. It doesn't matter if it is in your house, if it is in one room, or in your vehicle.
As long as you're with your family, you're going to make it through all of this that's been going on. All of it.
Do you find yourself trying to cheer your mom up?
Sometimes, yeah.
And when you do that, what do you tell her?
I love you, Mom.
That always works.
Yeah.
Rosa, Jacob, Joey, and the dog are all in one room, right across the street. The neighbors took them in. We've seen a lot of that in our stories on the recession, neighbors, even strangers, opening homes to the homeless. We talked to the Bravermans at the neighbor's house. They've been here 3 months, and that is starting to worry them.
I want to give the neighbors their own privacy, too. You know, I don't want to be invasive.
So you miss your privacy from across the street. What else?
Sometimes, you know, I have to go to the bathroom at night, and here I have to be, like, really, really quiet, because if I wake them up, I don't want to make them upset and get us kicked out.
Homeless kids tiptoe in a world of insecurity, hoping to be invisible.
People said that I talk too much, and now they say that I don't talk enough, and that I'm really shy, I guess.
You think all this has changed you?
Yeah, and I haven't realized it. but I think I've gotten very mature in a very short amount of time.
Look for the homeless in Seminole County, and you'll find Robert Williams' family of 5 in one motel room. He and his wife lost their tourism job several months back. When Angel Abreu lost his construction job, he and his wife had to split their family among relatives. They see their 3 young children on weekends, and on Sunday evenings when we saw them, the goodbyes are always painful. Destiny Corfey's family got out of that van and into a motel when her dad found a little day labor to scrape together a deposit on the room. He applied at car washes and at Disney World and worked as a bricklayer's assistant, but it was nothing steady. And as the hotel bill came due, David was short. He found himself prepared to do nearly anything to keep his family from being split apart by the homeless shelters.
So as embarrassing as it was, I sat down with a magic marker, and I've seen these people on the road with these signs before, and I wrote a sign out.
What did the sign say?
It said, "Please help, family of 5." Every truck that went by would holler up out to them or let them see my sign, "Hey, do you need any help? You know, can I get a job? Do you need any help?"
I didn't think that it was going to have to like come down to that. Like, he was actually going to go and take the sign and show it to people, and I don't want people to know like that he's my dad. Like, I don't want to be embarrassed by people.
You must have thought that you would never be that guy, the guy with the sign.
Never in a million years did I think that that would be me. And I told my wife, this is America, and America is full of wonderful people, and I'm going to go out and see what I can do and see if there's someone out there that can help us.
He showed us the sign that eventually caught the eye of a woman who stopped to say she might have a job for him.
And sure enough, that phone rang about a week later. She said, "David, I'd like to tell you you're golden. We have a job for you, and you can start Friday."
And that's where you got the hat.
That's where I got the hat. And
the University of Central Florida.
Absolutely. And I've been wearing this hat ever since.
He's a parking attendant, $10 an hour, and that's enough to keep the motel room, but not enough to get out. George dropped out senior year to look for work, but Destiny is still being picked up on the school bus route for homeless kids.
And when things get better again, we know that there's still people struggling, so we'll be able to help out a lot more, and we'll understand what they're going through.
This opened your eyes to an America that you didn't know existed?
Mm-hmm. I can't believe it.
We all hear about the recovery, that the recession ended in 2009, but some things are getting worse before they get better, and child poverty is one of them. America's motel generation is growing fast. Like the kids who came out of the Great Depression, this generation is being shaped by homelessness and hunger, but also by memories of neighbors who open their homes and of families that refuse to be broken.
Love you guys. Thank you. Love you, Destiny.
Okay.
Okay, so do you guys want to do the chocolate chip or the sugar cookies first?
By all appearances, Lee Scazzari is living a comfortable suburban life. She baked cookies one recent afternoon with her 4-year-old twins at her mom's place in Shirley, Long Island, about 65 miles east of New York City. Okay. Scazzari owns an SUV.
Bye.
The girls spend their days at a nice daycare center, and Scazzari works a full-time job.
A lot of people look at me and they judge me just by looking at me like, okay, well, she has a job, she has a home, and her kids look very well taken care of. Why would she need any help at all?
Scazzari needs help because by official standards, she and her daughters live in poverty. Her job as a certified medical assistant pays just over $19,000 a year and offers no benefits. So Scazzari's on Medicaid, gets food stamps, and a government subsidy to pay for childcare she could never otherwise afford. This 30-year-old single mom lives in that 2-bedroom house with her mother and pays rent. Her car has almost 200,000 miles on it and is in such bad shape, Scazzari says she's afraid to drive it.
I live paycheck to paycheck. That's what it is right now, yeah.
Do you have any savings?
Typically, I have enough probably to get me through the next week or so, but as far as having a savings, no. I worry about not being able to have enough food to feed the girls. I worry about them not having the opportunities that other kids are gonna have. So I'm constantly worrying, you know, I'm always worrying.
According to experts, stories like Lee Scazzari's are becoming more common across the United States.
There are now more poor residents living in suburbs than in major cities.
Elizabeth Kneebone is a fellow at the Brookings Institution and co-author of the book Confronting Suburban Poverty in America.
Poverty in these kinds of communities can be hidden. It can be harder to identify or even understand the extent to which need has grown because it may not be easily visible.
Today, the nation's poverty rate is about 15% compared to 19% in 1964, when President Johnson declared the war on poverty.
Our aim is not only to relieve the symptom of poverty, but to cure it.
Kneebone says since then, some aspects of the problem have changed dramatically.
Well, when we saw the launch of the war on poverty, the geography of poverty was very different than what we're looking at today. The bulk of poor people in the country lived in urban areas, in big cities, or in rural communities. And since that time, we've seen a real shift.
According to Kneebone, since 2000, the number of poor people living in suburbs has grown by 65%. For example, poverty is up by almost 16% in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, up more than 27% in the suburbs of Providence, up nearly 79% outside Seattle, and in the suburbs of Austin, Texas, the number of poor has swelled almost 143%. More poor people now live in America's suburbs than in cities or in rural areas. The main explanation for this shift is simply demographics. Many more Americans have moved to suburbs in recent years, and that growth included low-income residents and new immigrants. Other factors? Suburbs are still recovering from the foreclosure and financial crises. Kneebone says federal programs for the poor were mostly designed back in the 60s with rural or urban communities in mind. And when hard times came to the suburbs, many were not prepared.
Often, suburban communities have not built up the same level of infrastructure and safety net supports that cities have been building up over decades.
Oh boy. Where do I begin with the challenges?
Richard Kubek chairs the Welfare to Work Commission in Suffolk County, where Lee Scazzari lives. It advises the county legislature on issues affecting low-income residents. Local governments, already strapped themselves, face greater burdens in the face of federal budget cuts and the winding down of stimulus funds.
Suffolk County, in the last couple of years, has faced a $500 million deficit.
Even though Suffolk County has one of the highest median household incomes in the country and multi-million-dollar homes in the Hamptons, the food stamp caseload has soared, up 185% in the past 6 years. That's the case throughout much of America. Food stamp use up dramatically from coast to coast.
It can be very difficult, especially in this budget-constrained environment, to try and scale up to meet the level of need that they're seeing.
In Suffolk County, charities have stepped up as the local governments had a hard time meeting the demand.
Okay.
Food pantry organizers say they've seen numbers double in recent years, even in some of the county's most affluent towns. Carol Yarmish leads the Mercy House Food Pantry in Dix Hills.
We used to be one of a few food pantries, but now we're one of very many food pantries, and it's multiplying on a level that it's hard to comprehend.
Advocates say they're not just serving people out of work. They see many with jobs who can't make ends meet, just like Lee Scazzari. Nationally, real wages, adjusted for inflation, have been flat for several decades, even as costs continue to rise.
We also have these larger shifts in the economy where a lot of the jobs we're creating don't pay enough to make ends meet for a family. So even if you're working full-time, you're just not taking home enough.
That's especially true in Suffolk County, where many working poor don't qualify for government help because they earn too much to be considered officially poor, around $23,500 for a family of 4.
Despite our affluence, we have a lot of middle-income people who are struggling. We are one of the most expensive communities in the United States in terms of everything. Gasoline, housing, food.
In 2012, Kubek's commission put out a study estimating that, because of the high cost of living here, the poverty rate's at least 20%. That's 3 times higher than the official census figure of less than 7%. Another major problem and expense is transportation. In many suburbs, public transportation is limited. Until recently, buses in Suffolk County didn't run on Sundays.
If you're a working poor person, if you're, for example, a home health aide, many of them work on Sundays, what do? How do you get to work? Unless someone drives you, you take a cab, which could eat up 20 to 50% of what you're earning that day.
So many poor people, like Lee Scazzari, depend on their car. And car insurance and gas eat up about $600, more than 40% of the roughly $1,400 she takes home each month. And in case you're wondering, Scazzari's mom, who just turned 60, really isn't in a position to help. She's working 2 jobs to maintain the family home she inherited, and last year paid property taxes of around $7,000 on their small 2-bedroom home.
So why do you stay in this house and in this neighborhood if it's so expensive?
Because my mother is the only family that I have. This is her home. She said she'll never leave here. I can't force her to want to leave just because the cost of living is inexpensive someplace else. We do put on our socks like the girls.
Scazzari says she's also gotten no help from the twins' father.
The child enforcement is trying to help me locate Dad. Before I even knew that I was pregnant with them, I got up one day and he was gone.
Some people might say, okay, the situation happened to you, but why should taxpayers help fund some of these programs that you are being helped by?
I mean, I started working when I was 12 years old. I've been working ever since. I've put into just as much, if not more, than what I'm asking for, you know? I understand the backlash, I really do. But at the same time, like, this is only temporary.
But for the moment, she's facing a catch-22. The more she earns, the worse off she might be. Because if she accepts the small raises she's been offered at her job, she'd earn too much to qualify for the childcare subsidy. And if she lost that, she'd have to stay home with her kids, meaning she'd have no income at all.
A system that works against the system's own interest, it's just so counterproductive.
The Suffolk County Welfare to Work Commission's trying to address this and other issues affecting the working poor. It's pushed for more childcare funding, held hearings to call attention to growing poverty, and helped get some public bus lines running on Sundays and later at night. Experts say it's critical for suburbs across the nation to recognize and address the changing face of poverty.
What we're seeing in terms of the growth in suburban poverty is a real pressing policy concern looking forward. If we think about the war on poverty, 50 years ago, when Lyndon Johnson declared this war, if everybody had known what was going to happen, what would we have done differently? This is our opportunity now for suburbs to answer those questions.
I really believe that people can tackle far more than they think they can. My name is Veronica Scott, I'm 24 years old, and I'm the CEO and founder of the Empowerment Plan here in Detroit. I think women have a really difficult time understanding how valuable they are. The idea of self-worth is very important to me because I grew up a kid of addicts, and we were kind of set up for failure. We were set up in a hole that we had to climb our way out of. I ended up getting a great scholarship to go to college, and a class ended up changing my entire life. The class assignment was designed something to fill actual needs. I did my research at homeless shelters. So the first product I created was the coat. The coat looks like a regular jacket during the day, but when you open it up, you can actually slide your feet in all the way up to your knees and Velcro it closed again to make a sleeping bag. I was talking to the homeless population in that area and getting feedback and making prototype after prototype. When I was on like prototype number 7, a woman came out of the shelter that I was in and she was yelling at me. She was full on screaming. And she said, "We don't need coats. Coats are pointless, we need jobs." And really, she was completely right. Because a coat is just a Band-Aid for a systemic issue. And what really would have the impact is hiring the population that would need them in the first place. We hire only individuals from homeless shelters, and then we train them in everything from sewing and manufacturing to employment, as well as tech and whatever they need to become more independent and to be proud of their accomplishments and be proud of themselves.
I'm happy to be working for a cause. It's no greater joy than me coming to work knowing that I can make this coat and help somebody that was in my position. So I take great pride in what I do. I really do.
You know, actually, I sat at my dinner table with my son last night and I cried because I was like, you know, last year we were just in a shelter and now this year we're in a home.
I was the only person that could create this opportunity for myself. And that's all we're trying to do, is give them the power to take control of the life that they want to lead. No matter what you've gone through, you still can do a lot with what you have.